Welcome to the Tackle Your Feelings podcast with me, Dr. Hannah McCormack. Tackle Your Feelings is a positive mental well-being campaign brought to you by Rugby Players Ireland in partnership with Zurich Ireland and the Z Zurich Foundation. We want you to rethink how you might approach your own positive mental well-being. With our guests, we will cover a range of topics: confidence, mindsets, life experiences that shape and mould who they are. What makes them more than a player? And joining me on the couch today is Hannah O'Connor, originally from Galway, is that right?
That's true.
Playing for Ireland Women's, Leinster and Blackrock College RFC. And I also have Laura Feely from Donegal, plays prop for Ireland Women's, Connacht is what I saw on Wikipedia, and Blackrock College RFC. So yeah, I suppose we'll just get straight into it. And just to ease you in, I'm not going to ask you big life questions just yet. How did you guys get into rugby? Like, it's still a growing sport for women, so it's not always an obvious thing to do, and especially, no offense, but from Donegal. Like, how did you get into rugby at all?
Yeah, it's really random. I have a really random story. So I always played like GAA when I was a kid, but in school, when I was in like transition year, like fifth year kind of age group, got a new PE teacher because our usual teacher was out on maternity leave. And the teacher that started was going out with a fella that was from Wales, and he started working for the Ulster branch, who his sole job was to try and introduce rugby, girls and boys rugby, in rural areas of Ulster. So he got appointed to Donegal, and he set up like underage, and just because he was going out with Clodagh at the time, she introduced it to school. So that was my first introduction. My two big brothers played locally in Letterkenny, and then because John, the Welsh fella that was over, he set it up in Letterkenny RFC. So I just got lucky. I played on the first under 18s girls team in Donegal, and out of that, like myself and Larissa Muldoon both came from that squad who used to play. So yeah, it's mad, but it was random. And then I went on, I just loved it. And when I went to Sligo, that's how I ended up in the Connacht kind of setup. Played underage with Ulster, played one senior season with Ulster, but the travelling was too much because I was studying in Sligo. And then ended up, well, really like the next step to progress was to think about like playing AIL standard. So the closest to me was Galwegians. So Galwegians, Connacht. And then this one was like, I think you need to move to Dublin. So
how did you meet each other then? Through the Ireland squad?
Yeah, actually, I don't remember when we met.
I think it was through the Ireland squad. I think you were in it for a few years before I was. And then I think I got chatting to you. Probably knew each other to see from playing each other. Like when she was playing for Galwegians and I was playing for Blackrock at that stage. I probably knew each other to see from then, and then probably got to know you a little bit better when I came into the Ireland squad and then got to know you from there. But I actually can't remember.
It was in that's cool.
In King's Hospital when we were training out there, yeah.
Yeah, and I one of those relationships you just
yeah.
I had planned to move to Dublin anyway, and then like I didn't know which club and stuff, but because me and Hannah were friends and Michelle Coffey I got on really well with as well.
Roped her in. Real
recruitment skills of the girls.
Yeah, you were playing a lot longer than I was. Even when I first got into it, it was a lot later. I loved watching rugby. Always obsessed with it. Like I was obsessed with every sport. I'd give everything a go and give everything a watch. And it was only when like I grew up in Kildare, so I was playing GAA football was the big thing to play with the boys all the way up pretty much. Then moved to Galway and it was more of a camogie stronghold. Did a bit of that, but hadn't that same graw for that as I would have for the football. Did a bit of golf, did a bit of volleyball. And then it was only when I moved back up from finishing college, or to start college actually, and finished college actually, moved home for a year, moved back up to Dublin, and then I was playing tag rugby with some of my friends. It was actually a random group of girls who I got to know then, and then they were like, we play rugby with so-and-so with CYM Terranure, and it's great, it's the same as this, just a little bit more. And I was like, I'd always wanted to give it a go. So I think I was only about 24. I was 24 like when I eventually did make the jump to start. Played with CIM, had great fun there, really good small club over there. And then, like Laura, wanted to give it a crack kind of at interprovincial level and see what happened out of it. So again, to do that, the exposure at the AIL level, moved to Blackrock, and then obviously then from there Leinster and then Ireland. So yeah, it's been good. It's been good crack.
And was it easy to transition from the other sports into rugby, or was there like, did you kind of stand out? Well, I was going to say you came from football into camogie, but did you ever stand out in the pitch and be like, I feel so naked, where's my hurl?
Sometimes it's funny, like I think
never played camogie.
Yeah, it's not as much. It's just different. Like it's a different. I don't know how you describe the difference of it. It's a different group of people. Like it's a different vibe that you get off. like the gang that play, even the gang that play camogie versus the gang that play football are completely different. And then I played volleyball, so it's like different numbers on the team. And then for me, golf I did for a good few years at under 18 level, and had played for Connacht at under 18 level, and that's such an individual sport. So I think that was the big one I was doing before I got into rugby. So it's a pure individual sport.
Yeah, I did athletics. Like I did shot put was my main event for years. Like that took up most of my childhood, but I always like wanted to be more in team sports.
It's different though, isn't it? Like you're totally on your own, and with your own
celebrate
head.
on your own, like
the good times and the bad times, but it's all on your own, and it's all on you if it goes belly up like at some stage, and like for the good times too. But team sport is class. Like rugby, there's nothing like it because you've such a mixture. It's probably the best sport that I've played in the sense of you've such a mixture of people on the team.
We call ourselves a bunch of misfits. Like that's why we all get on. Like
it's completely between positions and what people bring, and then like in club as well. Like it's just a complete
and the pathways that people made it as well. Like I actually
it's really interesting
where you started before.
But
we do. Everyone has a different way of how they got there and stuff.
Or played something unusual along the way up, and you can see little bits that help. But it's different. But probably the best one of them.
And is that like one of the, you kind of mentioned there the friendship, and obviously you were saying that you kind of convinced Laura to move to Dublin, or you were maybe thinking about it, but it was Hannah. We'll put it down to Hannah.
Yeah, I'll take credit.
Yeah,
I'll
take credit for it.
What drives me like in the club game was always the friendships that I had. Like I loved playing for Galwegians. Like they're my rugby family, and like always kind of like Galwegians will always be home because it's kind of where I learned the basis of everything in the sport, and I fell in love with Galway. But to progress rugby wise, I had to make a step, and I feel like I did what I could in Galway, and I needed to centralise to Dublin because the travelling just became too much. So when I was making my decision to move club, like it had to be about the fun and the friendship and the crack, like, and I already knew I had friends in Blackrock, so it was nothing to do with what players were where. It was other than the girls that I got on with. So.
A lot of the time it's who you know. Like you'll know one person and that'll kind of be like, oh yeah, and then you'll judge it off that.
And what about was there ever did you ever feel guilty about that, like the loyalty thing?
Leaving Galway? It broke my heart. Played them last weekend for the first. I managed to dodge playing them for 3 years, but I had to play them last weekend, and some of the girls I played with are still there, but like after the match it's just like old times and getting photos together.
Because it's an interesting dynamic. Like one weekend you're playing with a team, whether it's like club or if you are moving club or whatever, and then you're in the dressing room with like the national team. Like how do you manage like running into someone and like not tearing strips out of them 1 week, and then having to be like, no, you're my support person?
It's funny though, because it's easily done, because it is great crack. Like it's great crack at club playing each other, because you go from absolutely loving each other to absolutely hating each other. It's so funny.
Especially in the front row, like I'd have to come up against the likes of Katie O'Dwyer, who like is one of my best friends in the national squad. Then you're coming up against her, she's saying stupid things to you when you're in the middle.
They know what riles you up, and everyone knows exactly, like, or if they say something to you, or like you'd be at the bottom of a ruck. Like I remember when we played, like again, I was really good friends with you at that stage, yourself and Nicola Friday. And Leinster were playing Connacht in Energia. And there's at one stage early on in the game, and I was going to leave a ruck, and as I went to run away, like someone like was holding on to my leg, and I went to, like, I didn't even look back, went to yank my foot away, it wasn't coming, went to turn around, I was in to roar at this person, whoever. I turned around and there was herself and Nicola. She was on the floor holding my foot, and Nicola beside her in bits laughing. Yeah, laughing. And I was just like, there's no point even saying this to the referee, because like he's not going to believe it. Like anyway.
But before that, and even in the game, so like before the match in Energy, the way the changing rooms are lined up, you face each other.
Okay.
Or even before that, we went to the bathroom. We didn't know how to interact with each other in the hall.
Just said nothing.
We just like nodded and walked past. But it's just
it's good. It's good fun, because you get over it straight away then. Once you play each other, like you'd say nothing than maybe the week and the build up to it. And then as soon as it's over, you're all back to normal again.
And you do like that. You have to have strong relationships then to be able to do that. Like, as if there's ever any, like, do you ever look, or are you ever in a match situation and someone does something and it's like, that was brewing from team or national training a while ago, or someone, do people take those opportunities, or is it actually more?
I don't think anyone holds grudges or anything like that.
Like it's the type of game that you don't. It's so clean, and it's so like there's no dirtiness really like that. Like, but yeah, more the crack side of it, that people we know each other so well. If you're in a line out, you'd be talking absolute rubbish just to whine the other, knowing exactly what they'll be saying and just echoing it, or just annoying them. Just generally just annoying each other really more than anything.
But we are very close. Like as an international squad, like the team that travelled to Japan, like we were almost dying to get back to play against each other just for the crack of it.
No, but it's good. Yeah.
And what's the reception like from home? Like, obviously Donegal.
They threw her on a wall. They threw her up on a mural.
Yes, I have my own mural at home in Belfast. What do you want to do? totally forgot about that. And like literally every time my friends like are home from college or home from travels, like
Bring them down to
I
the
just
wall.
Who else is on the wall with you? Like, is it
Larissa Muldoon is on it because the two of us are from the
cool.
same village. Yeah, I think it was Erlingus did it a few years back, and it was like pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and we were told, you know, part of the county council they were going to have to take this thing down, but sure. COVID happened, everyone forgot about it, and now it's up on the wall. I think it's there
It's
to
going to be there forever.
Oh, it's mortifying.
Yeah,
sure.
it's good at home.
It's not often you can say you're painted on the side of the building.
It's funny. Yeah, there's that. To be fair, like your support from home is great. Like it's like Loughrea is where I'm from in Galway. Wouldn't like they're up and coming in terms of rugby club, and actually a really great girls structure in place down home, and they're really pushing it, like, and it's great to see it. But it wouldn't be a massive like rugby stronghold, but they're just pure sport mad. They're pure hurling town. They get behind anything, like they're so supportive. Like my mom and dad have a family business in the middle of the town, so like that's where we're based above it. Like, so yeah, you'd have pure on chat if you're any time working in the shop. Like you'd have someone reliving the full 80 minutes of a game with you. Like, so that's great.
You get to know each other's like families and stuff a lot too. Like my parents come to every club game and every Irish game that they can. But even in the crowd up when you guys were playing against Scotland, and I was in the extended squad that day. But there was girls in the crowd shouting, whatever, just roaring. But you picked up on their accent was definitely my accent, and you guessed they were from Balmaffey.
Like, you're looking for Laura.
You nearly know where people are from, like, and who's there to support who.
Yeah, so like I used to play rugby way back in the day, and I remember I started playing rugby when I went to DCU, and back then it was like people used to refer to it as not a real sport. So do you ever get like that kind of negative backlash, or when you tell people that you're like playing for rugby for Ireland, like does anyone ever go, doesn't really make what big deal?
No, to be fair, no. Like everybody, maybe I shouldn't say it to you. Maybe they do, but no. To be fair, no. It's really good. Like people are really supportive. Like even from a work point of view, anyone who hears it like and knows the time that goes into it, and they're always very supportive. I've never gone anything.
No, never negative.
Even the lads at our club, like that we play Blackrock, are brilliant. Like they just do the same way. Like we're the same. We're the first team there. The first team is not men's and women's. It's just
the boys are great.
It's really good.
They're at every match they can be at.
Which is nice. I think that's a change in probably things over time. That like it's very much on a level playing field now, so it's great. Yeah, so hopefully it'll continue to go there.
Have a lot of people being like, it's not a real sport, not necessarily to your face, but it come back to you. So it's great to hear that there is like a change.
It's definitely happening. Yeah, it's definitely happening.
And would you now encourage young girls to take up rugby, or you kind of, because again, that's another perception even from people. So I work with someone who has daughters who's like, they're not going to be allowed to play rugby.
Yeah, but their sons are probably allowed to play. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is like, oh, my son plays, but my daughter shouldn't play. Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge with it at the moment. Like, we have underage. You're involved with the minis now and again as well.
A bit sometimes, yeah.
But I think that's the big thing. You'd see the mothers and fathers would rather their boys play than their girls, and like it'll change over time. There's huge numbers involved with minis now, so it's definitely changing.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest challenge of it.
At school, like I would have like rugby. We would teach tag rugby, and kind of get them into that way, so they would know that I do it. So like I would always be using like the parallels of like, oh, this is the same as Gaelic football. This skill is really good, or like, if you're into dancing, this is really good. You'll have quick feet for this, and just trying to mut it that way. But yeah, no, I would do it with them. Yeah, the dancing is just, you just lost a career in dancing there. They'll have you back again. Don't worry. But yeah, no, I do coach it in school, and they do love it. Like, so it's kind of, even if you get no more than anything, if you get one or two that take it up, and like no more than you starting off because of a PE teacher, it's kind of the same. If you get one or two to do it, like it's a cool outcome from the end of it.
So it's obviously quite clear that you're big advocates for the game. You're big advocates for women or girls and women getting involved. But like, is that challenging in a way that, you have to constantly love something that can't always be enjoyable? Like, surely you guys have had challenges playing rugby, like yourselves.
Massive. Yeah. I think I've like, obviously selection processes is probably the biggest thing, and like over the years, and just being, I suppose, like rejected from like selection, or like, turned down when you think you're good enough, and you basically go away thinking you're not. Like, so I think that's happened at every level I've played at. But I don't know, I suppose that comes down to just believing in yourself again then, and try and pick yourself back up and ask the questions and how you get better, and take that on board, and try and not focus on the bad sides and see what you have to offer. And
it's the addiction of it. I think that like, it's like, God, it absolutely kills you sometimes. Like, it hurts you so bad, like the pain that you go through, like for the sadness or the disappointment of those type of things, like selection or missing out on things. But then the highs you get off it are just so good that you wouldn't change it for the world. Like, and you'd like the people you do it with and the friends you make, and hanging around with those people day in and day out.
You easily forget how horrible it feels at that low point whenever you get the good
stuff.
points.
Yeah, it's worth it for the good stuff. Like, but yeah, you wouldn't like, and it's tough. Like I remember like at years in the past, like missing out on like Six Nations selection. And you have to go into work then and meet like 12-year-olds who you've kind of prepped that you might not be here next week, but you've told them that it'll depend on selection, and then they know that you're not there. So you have to explain to them like how it works. You explain to them how you feel, and you tell them like, because at that age they're the same. Like it's the same disappointment for them when they don't win a match or when they don't get to go on a certain team, and you're like, this is life. Like, and you have to, like you said, ask the questions and realize that like if you want something bad enough, you keep going at it. And they see it at our level too, like for my girls as well. They've definitely seen the highs and the lows with you when you're going into them and out every day, that, you know, you get the disappointment, yes, and you see how upset it is and stuff, but you move on with life. And then when it becomes good and you get the good days, it's worth it 10 times over, yeah.
And is that something you think you had to learn over time? Because like a lot of people, when they're disappointed, it's very natural to kind of hide away, remove yourself from a situation. But like you said, your disappointment is almost public. Like, how did you deal to manage that? How did you learn to deal or manage with that? Like, what is it? What would you put it down to?
I think for me, like I have very solid support systems at home. My mum was heavily involved in sport growing up as well. Like she would have coached me at athletics and things like that. So in an individual sport, you know, when you are dealing with that disappointment, she was always my person to go to and stuff. And when I went into rugby and was dealing with disappointments there, I kind of always went back to her and what advice would she give me? And it was always to go and ask the questions, where did you go wrong? What did you do? And like to try again. Like it's literally that like not giving up attitude. And I think that I was lucky from an early age to learn that little bit of resilience and that you have to believe in yourself. Because other people just may not believe in you, and you have to show them why they need to believe in you, and you just have to keep going. Like, I think it's like you never actually lose until you give up. Like, so.
Yeah. And that's like it, but that's something, a process that you've been through.
Yeah.
Do you reckon like rugby and playing sport helped that? Like, do you think you'd be the same person if it wasn't for rugby?
I'd say not. I'd say definitely you say like the resilience, like it does take a lot of it. Like you do, like there's times where you'd like question yourself beyond belief, like when things don't go your way and you really have to dig down. And like, as you said, like your support networks of your friends and the people that you're in it with, like we laugh all the time because in our friends group, like I don't think there's ever been a selection so far of us being friends. This is what we joke about. There's never been a selection or a game situation where either we're playing on different teams for provincial or for a club where we've all been in the same boat.
When she's saying she's talking about our little like
our smaller group, our WhatsApp group, like where when we joke about it, like it's like there's never been a situation. There's always been one of us missing through injury or through not being involved in it or selection. Like so, it's I don't think you'd be the same person without the ups and the downs of it, and like you do have to have that resilience. You have to dig deep and realize that if you want it badly enough, you, like you said, you have to ask the questions and like self-reflect, but not to the point where you nearly ruin yourself. You kind of have to go and find out like what's your point of difference, and you know, you mightn't agree with it at times, but take it on the chin and go again and make yourself a better version of yourself.
It's that self-belief. Like it comes down to self-belief, like because coaches come and go and like opinions change, and one coach will like that you do this and another coach doesn't agree that that's what is needed for the team, and you can only offer what you bring to the table. And you can't change yourself completely, but like the fact that one coach believed that it was good enough should be enough for you to keep going with that. Like I think we talk about it like it's super strengths and like what's your super strengths, and just back yourself on your super strength and it will be enough for someone. Like, so
because it's funny, I remember playing rugby again, and it was actually, we were training for a squad, and it was like all this pre-season and they hadn't decided what position we were going to be in. And I remember I was like, I'm going to go into it like, you know, head held high, shoulders back or whatever. And then they were like, right, Hannah, you're going to play number 10. And I was like, excuse me? And I actually, it's funny, it was the opposite of what you said, which is I didn't believe in myself that I could be a number 10. I was like, no. And I backed away. And it's one of those things that I actually regret, because I'm like, if only I had actually they believed in me, but I didn't believe in myself. And that was a huge lesson for me to learn. So I'm going to flip it back on you guys now. What would you say is your biggest life lesson, whether it's in rugby or outside of rugby, that's kind of made you go, I'm going to change my approach now?
Oh, you need me that answer first. Go on, you go first.
No, I go.
Because I can't think right now.
Biggest life lesson is probably just patience for me, I think. But then what you're saying there, I don't know how. I've always been quite patient with things and not to get overwhelmed with the sadness of something or like the devastation of it, because I think you can get lost in that, and you need to find your support system, find your friends that build you back up, because you can get lost in the emotion of it, and sometimes you just need someone to logically tell you what the situation is and pull you out of that.
And is that teammates, or do you go to family?
I personally both, because we always say like our family are direct, like our parents or our brothers and sisters, like they get it, but the only other people that get it are us, like they're the people that are involved in it, like they're the only people that have felt that before. So I think it's the balance of, you need to let it all out to your family, and you don't, like, you've no embarrassment with your family members, you can just be like that raw emotion, but then you get it out there. But then the logical sense, like I would go to someone like Hannah, who was there on the pitch with me and is able to say, well, you did this right, and they might be putting you down in one way, but like you have this to offer the team, and just remember that. And that, I think that's, your teammates can build you up in a technical sense, as well as emotional, but your family are there to just let it out, which is so important. I think you have to feel it, like,
and it's
first.
actually important to have different people to talk to about different things sometimes, because like, I don't know if this has ever happened, that you've lost out on, say, selection to a friend or to, like, I don't know, a buddy or whatever. So you can't really be turning to them and going, I'm really pissed off that you got it and I didn't. So having someone who's maybe removed is good, but then having someone who's actually embedded in it is also good. And it's situational sometimes. What about you, Hannah? What was your biggest...
I think for mine, like, for the biggest life lesson, the mixture, I suppose, of resilience and the patience, like, of like, whether it's work or whether it's rugby, like the journey that you're on, like, it's full of curves. Like, I remember starting off in college and the CEO came out and I got primary teacher. My mom was a primary teacher. So like, I had primary teaching, I think second, I had PE teaching first. That was the dream. Tunnel vision on PE teaching, and missed it by like 5 points, and then ended up going to Pats, and I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, this is wrong. I was like, this is not for me. I was like, oh, this is not for me at all. And then like, it works out in the end. Like, I'm very happy with what I do, and like, I love my job and the opportunities it gives me in every sense of it. Like, so like, I think the patience with things and the journey that you're on, and like staying with it, with
trusting the process.
Yeah, it's like trust the process of it. Like, it's not a straight path, like by any stretch of the imagination. It's full of curves, full of bends, and like we've spoken about, like the disappointments that you'll come across the way. Like, it's so easy at times just to pack it in and walk away. But you have to remember the bigger picture of why you're doing something, whether it's rugby or work, and what you want out of it, that you have to go through things or find another way to go around things to get to your goal, your end goal. Like, just builds up your resilience and builds up your character, and it's like a life lesson. Then you're like, I've done this before there, and I'm able to do it.
We're really bad at like punishing ourselves for feeling bad too. Like, we're really hard on ourselves. Like, we have high expectations from ourselves. Like, we're high achievers. None of us would have made it to this level without having that. And it's important, but what we forget is that we don't allow ourselves to feel like crap. And we just expect that it's just going to go away. But like, I know, like, I always talk about it to the girls, like, you have to let it out, like, you have to feel it. Like, I was disappointed in Japan, and I didn't want everyone to see me disappointed at one stage over there, but like, I knew I'd have you and Nicola, like, straight away the next day. Herself and Nicola were like, come on, we're going for coffee. And I just bawled. And like, then it's done. And as Nicola said, Nicola's like, look, you've drawn a line under it now, you can go back to the hotel and it's done. But I don't think you can get past anything without just letting it out first, and then you can put structure on it afterwards. Like, ask the questions. Like, you both of you were like, look, these are what do you want to find out about selection, blah blah blah, whatever it is. And I was like, I want to know these answers, and they were like, okay, go ask them. So then I go find that out, and then that builds my next step of how do I get over this. And that's
it's like that journey. Like, it's like that journey of, like, it's the same with work, and then you go through, like, if you get that disappointment, you can either totally shirk away from it and like just bury your head in the sand over it and like just go turn and like hit, it's like a bumper car, like hit it and go the other way. Or like you said, like, you can feel the hurt from it or feel the disappointment and figure out the way to get past the obstacle in it, and like get through it in some way that it works, whether it's talking it out, like writing it down, like having your moment of and then getting on with it, like, and like at the end of it, like when you have those moments in your life, like I said, rugby is really great for giving you plenty of them ups and downs, but like you realize then it makes you a better person. Your character is stronger, like, and you can do that, you have the resilience to go on and kick on from there.
And like, so it sounds like you're kind of similar in the way that you know, whether it's through a bit of coaxing or through a bit of time, but you will let it out. You will, you know, and you recognize it in each other.
Yeah,
but
we probably process things differently, right? So like I it comes out. It just comes out straight away. I can't hold it in. I talk it out, whatever. And I'm not speaking for Hannah, but Hannah will think about it a little bit longer.
Yeah, not speaking for Hannah, but I'm going to tell her how to.
Yeah, but like I wouldn't annoy Hannah that like after a disappointment because I know that Hannah needs time, and like that's a good thing about our team as well. We all know that level of what we need in those times. So that team environment is
we're completely different.
You'll let it out. Yours might be anger, mine might be crying.
Yeah, no,
the emotion will come out.
We just deal with it differently, but it kind of balances itself out. Yeah.
And I need someone like Hannah, like, because I will get lost in that emotion and I'll be sad, where someone like Hannah will be more logical and bring you back to reality with it.
But is that ever annoying to have?
Oh, yeah,
like when you're like, because it's happened to me where I'm like, I just need to be sad right now, and someone's like, but if you look at it logically, I'm like, no, I need to feel this emotion.
Oh, we'll kill each other.
Yeah,
absolutely kill each other. Yeah, we will. We'd be like sisters. Like I probably fight with you more than I fight with my sisters.
Yeah,
so we'll have that moment where
I don't have any sisters, but if I did,
yeah, I cannot. Like, and she might say the same as me. We look at each other sometimes and say, I absolutely hate you. I love you, but God, I hate you. You're so annoying.
You're better with me though, because you're soft whenever I'm sad. Like.
I do, yeah. Like I'm not gonna be absolutely cruel to you, but like, yeah, I'm so much more like matter of fact, where she'd be more like emotional about it, like not in a bad way, like but just express it more and stuff. And I'm just like,
I'll talk things out like
I'll
crazy.
Think about it.
Where she's like, don't talk to me.
Yeah, I'll overthink it and think I'll overthink things. Yeah.
And so how do you manage to stop the overthinking? Because I think a lot of people, again, that's something that it's a very human thing to do. And I'd be a thinker, and I've learned over time that I need to do more what you do and let it out and not like have it so much. But
I kind of deal with it in a way that like if I'm overthinking, I'll give myself like you laugh and going like, what does she do? I'll give myself like a certain time frame. So like whether it's like a day or 2 days, where I'll just be like, no, leave me be now, and just like, and not even need, I'll just stay like do my own thing, and then I'll come back, and then I'll be able to be like, yeah, grand, like, or whatever, and move on with it. But yeah, I'll give myself like a time frame and then either trash it out. I'll generally talk about it once I have it solved. That's my issue. Yeah, once I have it fixed.
You logic it in your head.
Once I have it fixed, then I'll talk to them about it. Generally. But
you're very good with the like, you know, say if it was around selection, you're excellent at like asking questions and getting like what you need to improve on, and that will be your focus. Like you'll focus on details, like almost which I need to get better at that.
So Laura, would you say like, so Hannah, you logic it out and then you chat about it, but do you chat about it to get the logic out? Is that
yeah, and I will get to the logic, but I'll go through all of the emotion for like everything will come out of me. Like,
and that's not a bad thing. No, right? That's like obviously a really positive thing, and like it's really refreshing to hear that there's, even though you're different personalities, you obviously get on, and it's like not everyone is going to be the same. Not everyone's going to handle things the same way. So would you say that like, obviously this is a relationship that's built over time, and there's more people who are in your group who you might kind of also do this for as well, but can you then recognize in each other when you're like, this is not her normal way to deal with things? Or has that ever happened where you kind of go, I'm actually a bit, or what would you do if it was a situation where you're like, I'm actually a bit worried about this because she hasn't cried her eyes out in front of me yet? Or
if I've gone quiet, then there's something wrong.
I generally would do to her what I will want done. So I'll give her time. Yeah. I'll give her a day or two. Like I won't be like, what's wrong?
Let's talk about it now. Sometimes like if it's things, I probably will go to family first, like, so you'd know.
So I'll leave it and then come back to it. Suss it out then the next time we see each other train or something.
But that might be, to be honest, if it's non-sport related, that's probably where I would shut up a little bit more, like, or I'd like close off a bit more with things, like if it's like outside of rugby world. But then we're friends away from rugby as well, so eventually
it's funny because generally you'll tell someone. You'll generally tell someone in our group of friends who'll then tell the other person. They're like, oh, grand, that's fine. So then it'd be like telling each other. So then we'll all know about it. And then whenever she comes back to me, I'm like, oh, really? And pretend.
We're probably the last to tell each other things because we challenge each other the most on getting it out of each other.
Yeah.
So we'll tell everyone else who will kind of leave us alone, and then it's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
and what's the reaction in the group then? That like, if, you know, say, let's pretend I was one of your friends, right? And I get into the group.
We're friends,
of course. We'll add you into the group.
Yeah. Sure, they won't know me. It's just another Hannah. They'll be like, oh, Hannah's here twice. Cool. But like, what happens when, you know, you hear, say, like you have heard that Laura's having her kind of outward expression of emotion or whatever. And then do you kind of band together and like go, look, it's okay? Or is it like, look, that's sorted, so I don't have to worry about it now?
How would I describe it? It's probably more like sometimes
It's so funny to talk
like,
about this.
It's probably like a tag team approach sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe different people will be better for different ways of approaching it. So like generally like
I'll always know that you spoke to each other though. Like if I've said something to
I know you will,
like
because
Dora or Emer, like I'll know. They told Hannah. They definitely told Hannah.
Dorothy Wall is the other member. She's talking about here. So Dorothy Wall, who plays with us as well at club, and so Dorothy is younger. So sometimes Dorothy will be like, she's after telling me this. Like, what? I'm just like, she's grand. I'm like,
and I'll be like, Dora, why did you tell Hannah that?
Like, don't tell Hannah. But yeah, so it's generally that kind of way of like,
the don't tell Hannah happens all the time.
yeah, I know it does. Yeah, because it's just completely different way of dealing with it.
More like a family than
oh, it is,
you know,
completely.
like
and we will
that kind of
literally
thing.
tell each other that as well. Like it's just like, God, you drive me mental. But it's helping each other too. Like I think why it works is because we're very different. Like in a group of friends, and everyone has kind of a different approach on things. When you come
we're
together,
all so different,
very different. So like when it comes together, we're dealing with stuff. If you're all together, you have a good way of dealing with whatever it might be, for good or for bad. Like when it's a situation, it's quite good.
And has that always been the way? Would you say you have a similar group of friends from home or outside of rugby, or is this just something that has kind of happened because of the situation you're in?
Yeah, I think I would always find myself in friendships that kind of have that mixed match. You definitely have the big kind of common traits as people. Like we definitely share them, or even with friends outside of kind of work or at home. And then you kind of come together through the random other things as well. But yeah, you generally would find that you kind of have the same beliefs or viewpoints on things that kind of bind you together.
Kind of the same morals, but very different backgrounds and stuff.
You have to have the similar values, or otherwise you're just gonna not get on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what would you do if someone was like giving the full-on silent treatment, or say, Laura, in your situation, Hannah, something's happened to Hannah. She's going through her logic. She's thinking about it, but it seems to be going on for much longer than say normal, or longer than you would expect.
Yeah.
And you've gone through it, you've been like, is everything okay? She's like, fine. Like, what would you do? Like, what?
That's exactly what happens.
Anyway,
because me and Hannah have the relationship that we do, and we're total opposites. Sometimes I'm not the right person to go to Hannah because I'm too much for her. Like, and I know that. I am though. If I'm annoying, like if I was asking you what you're feeling here, that'll just push you away from me. Like, whereas some of the other girls have a better approach with you, maybe. Like, but you will always like come around. You just have to do it in your own time.
Yeah.
So it's just not to push someone in that situation, because I think you can push them away. So it's just recognizing that, that people need their space, and be aware that the way you deal with things is not how they're processing things.
That was a lesson I learned before as well. Like I'd be very much I learned to talk about things. So then I was like, but everyone wants to obviously talk about it because that's what helps.
I always thought that as well.
Yeah.
But then I realized that's not true.
And then I was like, oh no, I need to give people time and space. This is interesting.
Yeah.
You guys should make a group together. It'd be great.
Yeah, me and Laura, right? Come on. New WhatsApp
I'm
group.
leaving
Let's go.
Yeah, it's fine. Go for it.
Replace one Hannah with another. So then when you were growing up, as younger people, that's what you do when you do grow up. Who were your biggest role models, or who were the people you kind of admired the most?
I think that's a funny question to think of, because you think about it when you're younger and you're like, you don't really you're kind of just floating along and you have a clue what's going on. I think looking back on it, like as corny as it is, I definitely would say my parents for me. And it's only looking back on that, like I grew up in Kildare. My mom was a teacher and my dad was worked in McFitty's. Actually, it was great. Free biscuits and penguin bars. It's fantastic. Yeah. I know, there you go now.
Are you sure you're friends?
It's so informative. And then we moved to Galway when I was about 10 or 11, going into 6th class, about 11 or 12. And I absolutely hated this idea of it. And I was like, what are we doing? And then you look back at it, and they were completely changing. The two of them were changing jobs. We were literally buying a business, and they were both going into the business and taking that risk of moving the three of us, myself and my two sisters, down. Moving from the beautiful countryside to complete townies down in Galway, and looking back at it, it was such a big risk to take, the ages that we were, and for their own jobs and the commitment and the financial buy-in that was going into it, and looking back at all that they'd shown to do that, and to be brave enough to do that and take us with them and trust each other and trust the process. It was mad, but looking back at it, it's something that I'm really proud of them and for them, and no, it's great. It was definitely something that I would have massive respect for them now looking back.
What about you, Laura? Who's your role model?
I would have said my parents too, just the way that their dynamic works, and how they how they get through hard times, and how they taught me a lot of values like that, and like tools to use as a kid. I would have been quite an anxious child, like, and through school I was quite anxious, and I would have really felt disappointments. Like, I took them really to heart. Like, and I think without both of them, like I was talking here about like the emotional versus the logic. My parents are basically that. Like, my mom she's quite an emotional person, but she's very calm and level headed at the same time. Where my dad he's very compassionate, and he's empathetic, but he also is very logical, and he will like see the sense in things. And you know, when I'm going through a tough time, like, I automatically ring my mom, because I think you just want someone to listen to you and validate your feelings. But then I can get, like I said, you can get lost in that, and then my dad will tell me, look, this isn't as bad as you think, and he'll lay it out. And that is literally my whole childhood, of like, when I'm feeling anxious or when I was feeling down in any way, like, that was what they taught me. And like, I feel like I've learned really good tools to bring with me in adulthood with that, and that's like rugby, work, everything. And I just try to remember that, like. But yeah, so from that point of view, that definitely my parents. And from a sporting point of view, like, I've always looked up to the Irish women's rugby team, so like that was something, like. But that's, if I'm, as a whole, it would be in that combination. Like.
And who would be your role models now? Like, is there anyone, you know, that you'd be like, I want to be like them?
Still my mum.
Yeah, God, it's nuts. When you get older, like, I can't think of anybody actually that you'd be looking at. You've great respect for people, like your kind of friends and your peers, the people you're close with, and what they do and stuff. God, I can't think of Ciara Griffin at the moment, when all she's doing on Hell Week, like, it's class. It
actually makes, like, Ciara is doing so well in that, but it actually makes you so proud that you played with her. And, like, we would have had very similar values to Ciara, and like in her mindset, it's almost like we're really proud that Ciara's getting to show the country that, because
that's exactly what she's like.
We lived that with her, that mindset, and that like, we understand how you need that mindset to be at this level, and she's showing everyone what female athletes at this level need. And
she's probably quite like understated as a captain, like when she was with the team.
She's phenomenal.
Just kind of under the radar and stuff, and then on Hell Week, like on the RT, she's really like just showing exactly what we saw of her, like, day in and day out.
When I hear her voice,
I know,
I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, someone like her, I think, like, definitely looking at her, you definitely feel like the tingles of like pride looking at her. And
that's awesome. And to flip it completely on its head, so role models, great things to have, role models are great things to have, being able to admire other people. But what would you say if someone's like wants too hard to be just like someone else? Because they say, like, you know, comparison is a thief of joy. What do you do in that situation? Like, how do you balance having the admiration and respect for someone, and then not being like, especially in sport or in rugby or in any, like, even in work, and you're like, I'm not lesson planning the same way, I'm not engineering like this engineer over here, because I know so much about your work, Laura.
More than me, probably. She does engineering hard.
You know, like, I've definitely experienced that thing where I'm like, I'll struggle at something, and I'm like, I bet so-and-so's not struggling about it. And I have to almost tell myself to like, shut up and believe in yourself. But
I think in a sporting capacity, I think it goes back to what we were saying about like your super strength. When you go into those moments of like, when you're in a setup, like whether it's your club team, your provincial team, or the national team, you have to remind yourself that you're there for a reason. You've been brought in because you have some very good quality or qualities that have you there. So like, whereas you can put yourself against someone who's in your position and like put yourself up against them, or you put yourselves down on paper and see, I have this, she has this, and compare. There's always
all done that.
Yeah, we all have. Like, there's always going to be a point of difference, and you have to focus on the point of difference and not get obsessed. Like, the reason you're in there in the first place is because you have something that's different to what everybody else has. Like, if you're offering the same, you're easily disposable. But you have to remind yourself, I suppose, and where you can achieve and strive after someone who's, you know, someone you admire or someone you want to be on a par with in certain stats and things like that. You have to keep pushing the boat out in terms of what you offer that's different, and making yourself different, and make like things. The game is constant, because it's like life, it's like work. Your job is totally constantly changing, like, and same with sport, and your positional things, what's been asked of your position is totally changing, and you have to keep expanding and growing and being willing to grow and being adaptable and willing to change and willing to push on to keep yourself at the top of it. Like, so
it's like if you focus too much on that other person or the person you're aspiring to be, like you lose focus on yourself, and you lose focus on the things that you need to be working on. So like, they're good to have in the back of your mind, and that you admire them for what they're doing, but if you focus too much on it, it takes away from your day-to-day work on. So like, you're talking about points of difference there, like every coach is going to have a different point of difference, so get your points of differences, have them in your like little book of goals and what you want to achieve, but just don't. They're not the be all and end all. Like you can still like you have your super strengths and you can keep making them better. Like so. Yeah,
it's actually
just what you're saying.
like Emer Considine said in her Tackle Your Feelings video, and she said it was something her mum would say to her, but it's like it's not about being the best, it's about being your best. And I think that's something that I have to remind myself about. It's not necessarily about being as good as someone else.
Yeah, like you're never going to find like someone else's value of you is like that's how they rate you or whatever. But if you don't value yourself, you're not making it anywhere. Like, you know, your value has to come from you, and that is hard to remember. I think I'm going to have to tell myself that forevermore.
I was going to say, you make it sound so easy, Laura. Like how? But how do you?
Yeah, no, but it is. It's just like it's how I don't really know how I'm going to have to do this as well. Like that's what you learn. But if I just know that the energy you put into what someone else told you is just negative, because you can't change you can't control their ideas, but you can control. They're always going to have good things to say about you, because like you said, you wouldn't be there if you didn't have anything. So you do have things. It's just focusing on them and like Because
I've heard another phrase before. It's a very I would say it's a very country phrase, which I don't mean to be like dismissive around them, but it's what is it? Whatever they think of you is not your business. Have you heard of that one before?
Oh yeah, it's kind of like if you wouldn't ask for their advice, don't ask for their opinion.
Yeah,
that's I like that one. Yeah, it's a good one.
Are there any other kind of cliche bits of advice you kind of live to, or anything that you kind of have that you remind yourself of to, you know, keep believing in yourself?
When I kind of said it earlier, it's like you've never truly lost until you give up. Like so, it's your choice. If you wanna, if you wanna keep striving to win, or whatever win means to you, then just don't give up.
I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything now off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Well,
we're just gonna sit in silence.
I think of
something. So you kind of mentioned there, like, kind of, you know, your super strengths. Where does that come from, or what's that?
It's just the term they're using at the moment, but
in the Irish setup.
Yeah, I think I think it kind of comes from that within the national setup of like.
I think it's used across the boards of like stats and stuff. I think that a lot of coaches probably use that term.
Yeah, it's just kind of a good focus point. I suppose it brings it back to that. Yes, focus on the bigger team picture, but you also have to
bring what
you're bringing to the table. And that is like, it is when you say point of difference, like, you know, it's the difference between people being selected and not being selected. If they're offering the same thing, you all of a sudden become easily disposable because so and so can offer the same things. You really have to push your point of difference and push your super strength and be like, yeah, it is my super strength. So as well as trying to excel in your weaknesses, you have to keep pushing that as well. And it's kind of a good focus point because it reminds you of what you're very good at and gives you that buzz of
the confidence,
the confidence on, you know, practicing or putting into practice the thing that you're very good at.
Because you always get a kick out of it if you're watching footage back and the coach picks out something that you did, which is your super strength, and you're kind of sitting there going,
you're like, it's reassuring. You're like, yes,
exactly.
It's a nice fuzzy feeling.
I'm still doing that okay. Or that's still
that's still my thing. I still the one that.
So I'm gonna say, right, Irish public, we are very, very good at downplaying what we're good at. We're very good at downplaying our strengths. We're getting better. It's changing a little bit. So how did you reconcile that? How do you go into somewhere where you're like, you know,
you have to be a little bit cocky, like
how do you manage?
It's almost, I think, in that type of an environment of like the national setup, you see some people have it. Some people have it in abundance, like where they're totally like they can kick on, like, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You're like, geez, you're like, fair play, like they could, you know, kick on and be like they're delighted with their super strength, and they have more strength.
They have more super strength.
They have like a full web of stuff going on. But no, it's how would you like? It's a kind of a case of where you almost have to. It's almost like you have to fake it a little bit if you don't have it, because if you don't back, as we go back to what you say, if you don't back yourself, all of a sudden your confidence takes a bit of a hit, and you can see it in your play or your body language and stuff, that you're saying you back it but you don't really back it. So first and foremost, you have to back yourself. I think in order for your teammates to back you and have your back and trust you and be able to vouch for you, you have to back it as well, and you have to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk to match it. So it's almost a little bit of kind of faking it till you're making it at times. If you're a bit low on a low ebb, you kind of feel like, no, this is my good thing, let's just kick on, and I know that I could do that well.
It is hard, like, because me and you are probably not vocally confident, like we're not really like,
you don't walk into a room, you're like,
no,
lads going, it's like, come on,
Hannah's really funny, so she has that thing going for her. But on the rugby pitch, like it is hard sometimes because there's big personalities, and like I'd find some of their personalities are very dominant, and but you kind of have to just be subtly confident as well, I think, you know. So it's getting that balance of like really pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to show that you're confident in something, but also that like just I'd be more comfortable being like quietly confident.
Yeah, but even quiet, you have to back yourself. If you don't, like I said, if you don't back yourself, you just kind of fade into you're the wallpaper.
Oh yeah, like in the inside voice, you're going, I'm the best at this.
Yeah, you have to. Even if you don't really believe it, you can keep saying that to yourself to like fulfill that mindset.
Exactly.
And
like that kind of positive affirmation, positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Do you get your kids to do stuff like that in school? Or?
Oh yeah, like I probably don't do enough of it myself, like, but I do it kind of through them. I'm literally like that, like, the whole time, and say to them, like, I think the great thing is like, and sometimes it can be the worst thing in the world, like you might get selected and you have to walk in the next day and go into the classroom, and you kind of have to like, and like sometimes they'd be the only ones that I would tell exactly what's going on, which is funny at times because they're so, it's so weird, like, because I wouldn't tell them, like, or I wouldn't even say it to my mom and dad sometimes, and we get on great, but I like to process it first myself. But when you go into them, you kind of can't pretend that it's not happening because you look like the absolute idiot or like the spoiled brat if you don't. So you kind of go in and like saying it to them, and you're literally, I remember like one time, I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago, and I had 6 class, they were like 11 and 12, and like hadn't got selected for the Six Nations games that were coming up. So I was back in with them, and they were kind of wondering why I was back in with them. I having kind of missed, I think I missed a couple of days for camp and stuff. And I remember saying to them literally like, well, this is what happens. Like, it's like I have 2 choices now. I was saying to them literally like, I was like, I can come back here to you guys and just give up and not do it again. That was the easy thing to do because no one would ask any more questions and you're not doing it. Or if it's something that I really want, and which it is, I said like my dream, it's the biggest thing I want in this world right now, that I can keep going with it and figure out why I wasn't picked and not moan about it and not say like throw the toys out of the pram. Like when and I put it back on them, like it's like when you might win a match or when you don't win at PE or when something doesn't go your way, you have 2 choices the way of doing this. So like you kind of just literally lay it out for them and say that there's 2 ways I can do it, and you're nearly like giving them your options and what you're going to do so they see it. So it's hard to do it in front of them really, but you kind of have to do it in front of them so that they see that it's like a human thing and that they have to get used to the ups and the downs of it too, whether it's like academic stuff or extracurricular stuff, that you can't belittle what they feel, because at the time for them, that's the biggest thing in the world for them. So they see it both sides of it.
There's a misconception for sure that it's a straight line up to success, right? So it's good to be able to impart that knowledge into the young people.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be...
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'd always tell them that too, like, I think the first 2 years I trialled with Leinster, like I had gotten to a certain point, got cut, and I said that to them, like I was close to, being like, oh, it's not for me, like the risks you take haven't really worked out and it's not going to be the thing for you. And then he gave it 1 more year and then worked out, and now I'm where I am. So I think I always use that as an example to show them like that, it's not straightforward, and you can have the straightforward path for some people and it's a great picture and good on them if it works for them, but it's not always going to be that way.
No.
And if you do want something bad enough, like it's the same when people say like that old adage people give to you when you do your leaving cert, there's a way to get to everything. If you don't get your points, you can get around everything and do what you want.
My God, engineering.
You can go. Do you always hear that? You roll your eye, like you roll your eyes at this saying, but like it's true. Like there is a way and a means of doing. If you want something bad enough,
like
as I say,
our pathways to rugby are so random. Like I went all around the country before I ended up getting near Ireland. Like I played from Donegal. I was trying to travel for Ulster. I never really was selected for Ulster. I got very little game time, and that like the dream of Ireland just seemed so far away. But then I ended up in college in Sligo, which led to Galway, and then which led to Connacht, and then all of a sudden I was starting all the time for Connacht. So then I got noticed. It's just like you're like every opportunity or every change in your life is an opportunity, and it's just to just take it. Like
And just to kind of go back on that, Hannah, you mentioned before that like you wanted to do PE teaching and you didn't, and you kind of ended up in primary teaching and stuff. You've missed selections for Leinster. Obviously, you're saying you missed out selections for Six Nations before. Would you say which one sounds awful? You've got all of these things going on. Which was your biggest setback? Like, what would you say is your biggest setback?
At the time,
I'm going to ask you this as well. So you're not saying.
I know,
you've got time there. At the time, that's kind of the thing. Like, a part of the journey. Like at the time, each one of them feels like the biggest kick in the teeth. Like they're all like, because for not getting selected for Leinster, it's like that to you is, and it wasn't even like you say like the dream of Ireland. Like that was to me like, and I probably wouldn't have had the biggest self-belief like on it. That would have been like absolute pipe dream, like as in like wow, like if you could touch that, like so I never really thought that. It was really to see what interprovincial could bring. And like at the time, that is the worst feeling. Like that's the worst. You're like, this is ridiculous. Like you've been like cut twice from it. Like to go again, you're getting a bit further every time, and then like you're getting the no, and then then you get it and it's worth it. So it's like then you get a bit of like you're on the upslope for a while, get kind of consistency with it, and then bang, you're kind of down again. And it's I suppose both of them at that time were the worst, but then you kind of learn from the one previously that there is a way to come back from it. You have to kind of absorb it and feel the hurt from the occasion that's bringing, and kind of get over it then as quick as you can, and you get back on the horse again and try plod your way of navigating around it to the next kind of goal that you have in your mind. It's like a mixture between short-term and long-term goals, like, and kind of setting something in stone that that's what you want to do, or even if it's in the gym or if it's in something on the pitch, like that's what you want to achieve, and make it more tangible. And then it becomes a bit more like you can refocus your kind of emotions in that direction, and it helps it a bit for me. So that would be where I would put it.
What about you, Laura? What was your biggest setback and how did you get through it?
Probably have two that are in my head. Like I think when I was living in Galway, in 2017, like I was part of a real close clique in that group of girls as well, and like there was kind of four of us, and three of the four of us were called up to the Irish squad in 2017, and they all got their caps, and so I went to watch them, and I was so proud of them, and it wasn't anything about them, but it was just so hard to take that I was the only one left behind, and I just thought I was going to struggle. They moved on to Irish training programs, but like, you know, I thought I'd never have this, but sure, they just give me the program, and I just did the program anyway because I was just training with them. And then like how I got involved with Ireland, like because they were going to skill sessions every week, I just emailed the Irish coach. I was like, look, I'm here. I'm with the girls all the time. Can I just join in? It was Tom Tierney at the time, and he said, yeah. He's like, yeah, if you want to do the skills, come and do the skills. He's like, I'm looking for more girls to take part. So I got to do the skills, and then he got more exposure to seeing me, and then that was November 2017. Sorry, that would have been 2016, and then in January 2017, he brought me into the training squad for the Six Nations. That was and I thought, oh, I'm in now. I definitely have a good chance here. And you start to believe in yourself and you build it up. And I didn't get selected. And Emer Constantine got her first cap that time, and that's where we met each other, and we were very close. And it broke my heart then that Emer got her first cap without me, and I went through that whole Six Nations with no first cap. And then it was the World Cup, the 2017 World Cup, and I was sure that I had done enough. Like I'd been in the program for over a year at this point, and 3 days before they went into camp for the World Cup, I was left out of the squad. So that was like, I still remember the date. It was like 23rd of July 2017, and I actually broke my heart. Like it was really difficult, and I thought I was going to have to walk away at that point because the heartbreaks were just too much. But I came back in again after I remember standing in. I always had one of my big goals was to play in a World Cup. Obviously, one was to play for Ireland, two is to play in a World Cup. So I wanted that World Cup in 17. I wanted it all in one go, and I didn't get it. And I wanted then to get my first cap at least, and I didn't think I'd be around for another World Cup cycle, but or to be able to keep competing for a World Cup cycle. So after that, the whole coaching team changed, and Adam Griggs came in, and Adam brought me in, and he capped me in 2018, and that was the best day ever, like the best thing ever. And then it was the next dream, World Cup. And in Parma last year in 21, that broke all our hearts. Yeah. And that was the toughest thing that I've ever experienced, and I'll never forget it. And we came through that together. Like that was just so tough. I know you weren't there through injury and stuff, but like it was a dark time. COVID, it was dark. Like the whole thing was horrible, and it's really hard at the moment because the World Cup is now on, and the World Cup that we didn't qualify for, and that big dream of mine died in Parma, and it was just it was devastating. But you know, we went to Japan and we had the best time ever, and we wouldn't have been in Japan if we had qualified for the World Cup. And I'll never forget the Japanese tour. It was brilliant. So it all happens for a reason, but we get each other through it. Yeah.
I was going to say, so like, what were the things you kind of did to get through that? Like, because, you know, like saying it's heartbreaking stuff, you know?
Well, all the individual ones I'm talking about there was just the things I'd spoke about with like family and building yourself.
There was a good solid week though. I'd say at least a week where no one talked about it.
After Parma was dark. Yeah. And there was a lot of bitterness and anger there, and we had to get all these emotions out. So we called a meeting, like a focus group, for everyone to just let it all out to each other. It wasn't as much anger at each other, but everyone had something to say about the program, about the
different
everything.
the different.
We sat in a room for training, went out the window. We didn't train. We just let it all out, and we came up with okay, we're parking it. This is the line. This is a new year. We have to go
It was
again.
literally just saying everything, writing it down. That was literally it. Someone wrote it all down, and everybody got a chance. It was like the talking stick.
Yeah.
You could talk now.
Yeah.
We've talked enough.
It was brilliant. It was a brilliant exercise.
Yeah, it was. It was the only way to do it, I think.
Yeah, because I was going to say again, there's that perception that these so-called negative emotions should never be aired or should never be brought to the fore. But obviously, it's necessary in situations like that. If you hadn't gotten that anger out, if you hadn't gotten that disappointment, chances are it could have actually turned bitter towards people.
Yeah,
so like
harbors it.
And everyone had different emotions coming out of it. Like a lot of people were angry, some were sad, some, and everyone just had to let it out. Yeah. That was what came from that.
Yeah.
And you think, did that, like, I know you said that you wouldn't have gone on the Japan tour if it wasn't for that, but like, did other good things, do you feel like you guys learned from that personally? Could you say, that was a bit of a turning point for you?
I think because my big goal changed, I had to find a new reason and a new why. We always talk about our whys and like before that World Cup and all that, but my why changed after that, and I think it changed to the future and the younger girls and what I can bring to whatever trainings I'm allowed to be a part of to get them involved, get them to like the level that they need to be at, like because they were coming in brand new squad. We have had so many younger girls come in and they're great, but they're come in like deer in the headlights and they're terrified and like they're like, oh, that's Hannah O'Connor and that's Emer Constantine, and you just kind of want to humanize it all and like bring it down to a level for them, and like that became my new purpose, is just how much I can mentor the next generation, and that's my new why.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you, Hannah? Do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of the same. It took a long time to like, even after we'd sat down in a room and thrashed it all out, like your whole goal and whole, like I think had we qualified and people were people's works and lives circumstances would have changed what they were doing in life and everything else, college, the whole lot was like it just changed everything. And it wasn't even that we were arrogant to the point of thinking we were getting there. We were like, if we get there, that this is it's
because you have to forward
plan. You have to
pretend
and we really believed that we would do it. Like, we really did.
And it wasn't, as I said, that arrogance with it. It was just the possibility of if we do this. So it was a complete kind of reassessment of your goals and kind of re-switching your focus to why you're doing it and why you want to do it. And for some people, that was trickier than others probably. And some people, I don't think many people retired off the back of that.
No,
there was
I remember having a talk with like the senior group, and more than me had the same opinion, and I think we rallied each other into like, okay, we have a new purpose, like this is what we have to do. We can't just leave it, like there's a legacy to this, and we want to go again.
Yeah, no one wanted to finish on that way anyway. That was kind of what it mostly shifted to, that you don't want to go out like that.
We could have easily thrown in the towel at that, like
but you don't want to go out like that and that be your kind of your legacy, as you say, or your
and some people give what they could at that point, and no one begrudged anyone that did leave at that point. They give everything to it, and some of the people that retired after that had done World Cup cycles before.
100%.
But like the rest of us hadn't done a full cycle, so now this is also giving that back.
And is it like, it might be an obvious question, is it sad to lose teammates like that, or do you kind of like
it's really weird.
Once you're established in a team, you, like I said, the new people are coming in, old people are leaving, like how do you manage those emotions?
It's really
how do you look at someone and be like, you should be my other friend?
So many of the girls that we've played with, just it wasn't it wasn't their choice, injury or just things happen. But like,
you've probably seen more come and go than I will. Like I've like in my time being in there's been like a good few like notable people who have stepped away or retired or whatever it might be.
It's just giving them the recognition that they deserve, especially if they're going on their own terms. Like if you know that this is their last match, like they give them the recognition that they deserve, because they've given so much to it. Like, and everyone that's wore that jersey has added to the legacy and added to where we wanted to go. Like, and we tried to tell the younger girls that too. Like, some of the younger girls, they don't remember it now, and it's mad that that's women's rugby in Ireland now, that they don't even remember some of the girls that I would have looked up to as a teenager. But it's good in one way, because that's it just shows the progression of
They're
it.
your
like,
friends off the pitch as well as on, though, so you do make that effort
Yeah.
outside of it to chat to them. Like, you'd find yourself talking rubbish to them, like, or sometimes they're still playing club rugby, so you still have the chats with them there. And if they're not, you kind of make that point of like making the effort, because you are good friends off the pitch as well as on it. You're like, nice, you don't see each other as much anymore, but no, it's good.
The relationships carry over.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah,
it's not like you turn a blind eye to
No,
them.
you're
It's like,
gone.
you don't play rugby, you're not.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're on Hell Week and you're giving them support there.
Exactly. So, just a couple of questions then to finish up. Off the back of that, how do you guys, like, I know it's hopefully a bit far away, but how do you guys want to leave rugby? Like, how's your ideal situation to step away, if you've thought about it?
For me, I would probably say that I'd like that, like we said there, I'd love to leave it on my own terms, like, and
That's what
have
we all
pushed it to
want,
the, everyone wants that, like, push it to the max of what you can do, like, fulfill your full potential and give everything that you can, and like bring those people on who are in your position to help kind of further them on and just kind of impart some of the things that you've learned over the time. And leave the jersey in a better place, because it's never yours. You know, you're borrowing it to try and make it better, and then if you're lucky enough to get hold of it again, it's always kind of the viewpoint on it. But that's kind of on your own terms would be ideal when it works out like that.
Yeah, like I literally feel the same. I think, you know, like personally, like I'd love to finish. I think I started in a Six Nations. I'd love to finish in a Six Nations with like a home crowd. Like there's nothing like a home crowd. Like that's massive. And like because of COVID, I think I have nieces and nephews that have never seen me play.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like I don't know. That's just my own personal thing. But like that, it's all about like leaving the jersey in a better place and hoping that you've given some knowledge to the next generation coming through. And
Cool. And then last of the big questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? Like after, like you're still young. Like we forget that sport is it's a short career at the end of the day. Like what do you want to do? What do you think you'll do when you do leave rugby? I know you'll still have your jobs, but will you get into coaching? Will you try something else? Synchronized swimming? I don't know.
You'd be like good cop, bad cop.
We do that all the time.
Completely.
That's what we do with some of the younger girls in the squad. Good cop, bad cop. You can guess which one's which.
I would say, I probably envisage myself being involved in sport in some capacity, for sure. I think I couldn't imagine my life without some sport and some element of it.
Yeah, like I think I definitely take up sport. I'd probably go back playing Gaelic football for like my own, because I love it. But I think I coach, and I think I'd like to go into specific coaching for women. I think like in my experience, we probably didn't have enough technical coaches as kids, and like scrummaging. Like I don't know any female scrummaging coaches. Like so maybe that would be something
I thought you were going to say I don't know much about scrummaging, and I was like, you're prop for Ireland. What are you talking about? But yeah, specialized coaching for women.
Yeah, for kids, and like I think unfortunately, a lot of scrummaging coaching happens when girls are in their 20s and stuff. But I'd like to see it happen a bit younger, even if it's just like basics and stuff. So, I'd eventually like to coach as a head coach or an assistant coach, but I'd like to start maybe smaller than that. Yeah.
And you're into coaching, sure. I mean, like, do you reckon you're kind of a coach?
I know it's kind of like a day job. That's the point. Sometimes I'm like, I would
coach.
No, I do. Like, I feel like it's like the best of both worlds. And teaching, you get a bit of PE in there as well, so you get a bit of coaching in there too. But in some capacity,
do you
probably.
Have to fight with yourself to not just make every PE lesson about rugby, or is it?
No, you'd be surprised. Like, it's so funny because I said if you were
to watch, really good at every sport.
No, if you were to watch me to teach PE, like it drives the kids mad. They say sometimes I never care who wins. There's never a winner. There's a winner, but like you don't win anything. I'm like, there's nothing for you. I was like, look, didn't we all enjoy? Yeah, I'm like, did we all enjoy it? I'd hate it. Yeah, completely.
The glory of winning. No,
I even coached the teams and stuff in school, and it's just like we tried our best. And like I never get overly competitive. Like I'd nearly be giving out to people on the sideline who'd be like giving it socks. I'm like, they're 12. I'm like, stop. But no, I'm funny. Like it's just as long as they're all taking part. My big thing is like for Pete, they'll all be doing something. I'm like, come on, let's go. But it's funny. Completely opposite to what I'm probably like on the pitch. Yeah. So
have any like hidden talents come through in the classroom where you're like, oh my god, I need someone to look at that person there?
With the kids?
Yeah.
Oh, like there's some that are class. Yeah, there's some kids that are just, you can see them like that from GA or from whatever running, like they could just like go for days, like it's ridiculous. Yeah, so it's pretty cool when you see that and you're like, God, come back to me when you're like 18 and you're like, or come back to me when you're in the Olympics and like give us tickets, that kind of thing. Because it happens. Like there's a good few who's gone on to play for Dublin and stuff, and it's not even surprising me in the slightest. Like
that's
pretty cool. Yeah,
that's cool. Okay, we're gonna do a quick fire round of questions. We're gonna play it by ear because Haven't done this before. Okay. So, right, we'll do Laura first, and then I'll come back to you with other questions so that you can't think of your answer beforehand, okay?
Yeah.
Right. Podcast or playlist?
Podcast.
What is happiness to you?
Good crack.
Okay. What's your nickname?
Touchy for my touchy feely.
Oh, touchy-feely. I was like, what?
Original. It sounds weird unless I explain.
You definitely have to explain that one because that is not.
Totally forgot that. You creep. Yeah. I'm joking. It's not.
I was going to ask one, but that's a tough one. What's your hidden talent?
Being a better conversion kicker than Hannah O'Connor.
You have to see it. So he's very well hidden.
If you could be anything other than a rugby player, what would you be?
Teacher.
The teacher. No, I don't know. Anything other than a rugby player. I'd probably be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'd say for that one.
I mean, you're an engineer, so, well, so you say anyway.
The enthusiasm about my engineering career is united with me here. If I was,
Do you want me to come back to you? It could be a
I
slow,
don't know.
quick
I'm not
fire.
very good at quick
The
questions.
editors and the editors make it look
Yeah.
answered like that.
Exactly.
Okay, Hannah.
Don't give me
Quick-
the scaldy ones now. From
Yeah, I was gonna ask Laura. I was like, "What's your biggest fear?" I was like, "No, that's the
No,
one thing
yeah,
that
yeah,
you told
yeah.
me that
Yeah,
you
she-
didn't." Really
yeah, I
think
don't know
about.
that one. Don't ask me that one.
No, I had an answer for that.
Oh,
We kind of
okay.
spoke about it.
Okay, favorite childhood TV show.
Oh, Simpsons was always on. Simpsons or Friends?
I was gonna say Westlife or Boyzone, but are you old enough for Boyzone?
Yeah,
We love Westlife.
Westlife probably. Boyzone, yeah, we were there, but they're
I like Boyzone, but
They do a
Westlife.
few
Westlife's a big hit on the team.
yeah, Westlife.
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 What's your favorite food?
Love a good pizza or chipper chips. I'm giving you two answers: pizza.
And I'm gonna ask, what was your favorite subject in school?
It was always the one that get out the most crack in. Teacher, probably maths.
You were gonna say maths was so
Good group
hard.
of people.
Logic.
Good group.
Yeah.
Mine was
of people.
art.
Yeah, I wasn't good at it, but it was a good group of people. We had a good bit of crack. So yeah.
Oh, I had a maths teacher who I did honor just a little brag. Did honours in maths when we were leaving cert,
Fair
right?
play. Yeah, I didn't. That's why I enjoyed it.
About 20 people in maths by the end of who actually finally got in the whole year, right? Had the same maths teacher for fifth and sixth year as I had in first year, and I met him years later. Couldn't remember me.
Oh, scald. Dirt.
Yeah,
Done
his
dirty.
wife, who also taught in school, remembered me even though she never told me.
That's a guy thing, though, isn't it? Though, no offense, lads,
Yeah.
but I think remembering names.
Also had a massive beard and used to chew at it because we were like, did
Ew.
he keep food in there? But yeah. So thanks for joining us on the inaugural episode of the Tackle Your Feelings podcast. Delighted to have you girls. It was great chat.
Yeah, it was good fun.
And I'm
Thanks
waiting
having
for that WhatsApp invite.
You go.
I'll be getting kicked
Yeah.
out soon.
Yeah.
We'll replace her. With,
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tackle Your Feelings podcast. To find out more info about the topics discussed and for tips on your own positive mental well-being, as well as information about and how to sign up to the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme, please visit tackleyourfeelings.com.